right, guys, this is going to be a real interesting week. So let's kick it off with the S&P 500 here. There's not a ton of data set out this week. There's jobless claims on Thursday and the Beige Book on Wednesday with Bullard speaking after, but it's really not that much of a big headache with, like, considering that we always have the interest rate hikes and all that other stuff. There's nothing too crazy this week except for earnings. Earnings is here. Earnings is going to be pretty crazy. I'm expecting for the forecast to be pretty low. Honestly, we've already adjusted for it to be low based off the current economic conditions, and I think that maybe we start seeing some surprises. But technically, if we're looking at the technicals here on the S&P 500, this is the weekly on the SPY, and it did have this nice little jump up, that massive recovery day, but I think that was just a lot of short covering, and we saw a short squeeze because we got absolutely pummeled the very next day. And on the weekly chart, it looks like it's still... these obviously is a much smaller candle than we're looking at the daily chart. So when in doubt, you just got to zoom out. And it looks like it's still trying to break down below this. And I'm looking for that 356 breakdown to tap that 350 test. And then below that, we have this crazy consolidation period over here. And I think that we could hit this pre-pandemic low if earnings are that bad. Netflix is reporting this week. We have Tesla reporting this week. We have things like Procter and Gamble, all those necessities. And then we have travel as well with United Airlines and American Airlines. But one thing I'm really watching for is some continued SPY weakness based off of this weekly chart and this daily chart. I kind of feel like with that big, massive sell-off, we could probably break below this 356 support and head right back down to that low of 350/348 at the bottom where it tested. And then below that, I think that 340 is possible. I don't know if we'll get to 340 this week. I wouldn't count it out. And I wouldn't count out a bounce either. So on the upside, I'm seeing this 370 level. If we come back up to that 370 level, which would be pretty crazy, there is this gap right here from 370 to 373. Not too much, but that should fill pretty quickly. So upside I'm not too confident in. I'm really thinking this breakdown below 356, we see 350, and then potentially 340, which would send us right back to pre-pandemic levels, which is crazy because it's been almost 3 years since the COVID crash in the stock market. But S&P 500, I'm still looking for some weakness. Now, when I'm turning to some of these things that are kind of the indicator of that is the TNX right here is blasting off. It just broke out of this 40 or 39.92 top, and now it's coming out. We could probably see this 41 level, 42 level, which is inverse to the market. So pay attention to that, and also pay attention to the VIX demand, because we've been rejecting at these levels for quite a while now. Up here, up here, up here. Here we got rejected, and now we're right back there. So pay attention to see if this is this looks like a little cup and handle to me. So if we break out and get above this 38, then the market's going to start pulling back pretty crazy. But if you see this falling, then the market's going to start bouncing. So just use that as a correlator. And then the only other thing I'm watching is Netflix. Kind of think that they might have a nice report, actually. On the daily chart here, I drew a couple lines. On the weekly chart, I'm even paying attention to this kind of like this wedge pattern here. It looks like that has opportunity to finally get some legs up to that 300 level. I would love to see a breakout. Netflix has been crushing it lately, and they're starting to run ad platforms, so I think that they could do real well. So I'm watching SPY, Netflix, obviously the VIX and the TNX for that inverse piece to where the market's going to be going, and then Tesla is another one I'm paying attention to. It looks like it's kind of losing a lot of steam here. This looks really weak, and if they report bad earnings, then it could break below this 200, head down to that 180, maybe 175 mark, and this thing has been zooming, obviously, from $16 all the way back in 2020, so after a couple stock splits, we all know that. But I'm looking for some downside in Tesla. I'm looking for some upside in Netflix. And the SPY is all determining on the TNX and some of these earnings plays and the VIX. So if the VIX breaks out, I won't even be surprised to see the market at 340 this week. But if some of these earnings saves the market, then we could probably see that 370. So it's going to be a pretty up and down week, but these are some key levels. I know they're all over the place, but hopefully some of that analysis helps you out for this week. And the downside break can make a ton of money, and the upside break can make a ton of money as well. So SPX looking great, SPY looking great, and then I can give you a little insight on the QQQQ still here. It looks like there's a massive drop below. If we break to that low of the day at 250, or low of the week, on the weekly is this 255 level. Below that, wouldn't even be surprised to see it 237. So some downside to come. I still think there's a lot of blood. And yeah, that's it. It's going to be a pretty crazy week. And we have international conflicts really stepping up. So if there's any type of world war cooking up, I think it's coming around soon because our economies are failing, and that's the only thing to bring us out of this little hole. So war brings money. It's sad to say, but I think it's right around the corner, so just be really careful holding some long-term equity.